as somebody who's going to be the voice of education and education reform moving forward and what needs to happen, what did you need more of or less of when you were in high school? Like, what is the major reform or thing that you feel like needs to happen where you feel like you could have even been more prepared than what you are now?
Wow. This is very full circle for me, because even you bringing up research, that's actually another just big component of what I want to be a part of my career. And I actually just did finish the study, actually, where I was kind of asking this exact same question to some of the youth and families I was working with about where they see the gaps in like education. Is it at home? Is it in the community? Is it at schools? Things like that. And so you asking me what I could have benefited from growing up. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I think it comes down to just knowing what your options were. I think college, it's either pushed super heavy or it's not talked about at all. And I think for me, I kind of got both ends of that. And so, you think college is the only option. I'm obviously grateful I chose this route, but it's not the only option for everyone. And so when folks don't align with that, they kind of, don't pick anything at all. And so I wish, and even within picking college, I wish I would have known more ahead of time about the process of like selecting a major, picking classes, just the day-to-day life of a college student, and just what that looks like moving forward, securing internships, being involved, things like that. I think it just comes down to exposure. And I think a lot of Black public schools don't offer exposure, holistic, well-rounded exposure in that way.
I have the pleasure of being with one of my favorite people, one of my Energy Converters OGs, who has come back to be a part of this first cohort of this first national cohort, and who will probably, if she wants to, run this entire company later on, if that's what she so chooses. But we have Miss Erin Simmons with us. Now, I'm going to have Erin introduce herself, but I just want to show her some love. Erin was a part of a partnership a long time ago that I had with East Oakland Youth Development Center. And we were expanding, and it was a really great partnership. And when I met her, she was like this very quiet, kind of shy, but very I could tell she was an achiever. She kind of went into a gung ho. And I remember at the beginning, she was a little, maybe hesitant to speak publicly and things like that. And by the end of it, she's giving a talk in front of thousands of people. And she killed it. It's actually a video that we still use today. I actually might link it to it. But Erin Simmons, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for the warm welcome.
Yes. Well, Erin, I didn't do a great job of introducing you. I just kind of got to gush a little bit. Like you're grown. Like you now are doing some big things. You just got back in the country. You're doing some awesome stuff. So why don't you tell the people just who you are?
Mm-hmm. So I am a graduating senior from Chapman University. I double major in psychology and educational studies, and I'm looking to go into social work, school social work, and just work with young people, getting them to college, helping them figure out their career options and things like that.
That's what's up. So so how did you come to EC? I gave a little bit of that story, but what kind of brought you into our original cohorts, and how do we get you back?
Mm-hmm. Everything starts with the EOIDC, honestly, in East Oakland Youth Development Center. I was working there as an intern. As a part of my internship, I had to participate in our Pathway to College program. And that particular year, they were partnering with you. So you were able to come in, teach us about agency, teach us about EC and things like that. And I kind of just took advantage of the opportunity and ran with it. So that's how my first introduction to you was through the EOIDC.
That's what's up. And now we got you back all these years later. It's been a lot has happened. And I know I told you about it. So what brought you back? I know I asked you, but what made you decide? Because you could be like, nah, I'm good, bro.
I don't know, actually. It was, I guess I've thought about the opportunity I had a lot.
Okay.
I've thought about how, being able to write the speech and do the presentation and things like that. And that's actually pretty similar to what I want to do with my career later on. And so I think it was just one of those moments you're reflecting on things, thinking about next steps and whatnot. And it just crossed my mind. I'm like, oh, wonder what Charles is doing. I don't know if I emailed you, texted you, I'm not sure, but I just reached out and got a response, and I was like, hey.
Yeah, we were
Mhm.
already thinking about this, and I already wanted to bring in some of my original folks, like, because this, so the difference in what we were doing then was, it was mostly like a high school program. Then we might have took some middle schoolers here and there. I wanted to build a national group that was older, that was more college age, young adult, because I think that we have to start building the next voices to lead in education. And I think what's lacking in the space, first, personally, is critical thinking skills. I think there's a lot of emotional things at play, meaning that like people try to pimp our emotions because we're an emotional people. There's emotional times, and sometimes in that, I think it doesn't make us the best negotiators or where we're getting the facts. So this was more for that group that could already did that articulation, already did that initial stuff, understands agency, but wants to have their own platform. So in your career, what are the things that you're gearing up and wanting to do?
That is such a layered question. I love and hate when people ask me what I want to do moving forward because it's not a career that's kind of written down in paper. There's not already a job description for it. It's one of those things where I'm acknowledging a need and a problem in the community, and I just kind of want to address it from my own unique way. So, with that, I'm actually applying to master's programs now to go into social work, and I want to work with high schoolers. I want my whole career to kind of be centered around helping high schoolers or just young people understand their options, not even just college, but just understanding what they can do after high school. No one can want something that they don't know exists. And I think that's kind of a problem with a lot of young folks in like Black communities is we don't understand what those options can look like. So I just kind of want to be in a role where I'm able to expose folks to their options and help them take those steps to get there, whatever that might be for them. Again, not pushing a specific agenda, but just kind of helping elevate the Black community, starting with the youth and, future careers and whatnot.
Okay. I mean, I think even as we're talking about this, I think it's
Hmm.
interesting because I don't know if you know this. Do you know where I started my career as?
I think you told me it was social work, right?
Yes, I was a social worker for
Yeah.
5 years. I love being a social worker. And then I did a few other things, and I went out and became an entrepreneur, and I started, my organization and my consultancy. So, and it was pretty similar, right? Like I knew I wanted to make an impact. I had worked at these different places, and there are things that you like when you work for somebody and things that you don't.
Hmm.
And sometimes, and this is the game that I try to give, the young people in a sense, is like there'll be like a lot of critiques that somebody might have, like, oh man, I don't like how this job do this, do this, do this. And then you start your own thing, you like, oh, okay, well, that makes a little more sense now, or whatever. It's always a big shock. But in this program, there's a lot of different things we're talking about, whether it's mental health and education, or whether it's like how to build agency in other people or around academics. So when I talk to you about agency, and if you had to talk to other people about it, how do you define agency for you? What does it look like for you to be agentic? And then we'll get a little bit more into what you want to do. And maybe somebody watching might want to reach out to Miss Erin Simmons and have a different conversation.
Agency looks like kind of what I was just saying, the ability to make that decision for yourself, to have all the information you need to make that informed decision about whatever the case may be. And so when it comes to like agency and education, I think of students being able to take lead over their education, knowing what's happening within their schools, within their district, within their community, and then being able to take action on it.
Yeah, and I think I love that, because one of the things that I'm thinking about with you is like when we teaching you all about agency, one of the things we're teaching you how to do is also not just hone in on your why, which is part of it, and your story and sharing that and leaning on that, but also how to do research, how to actually go and look at the facts, how to research the other side that you might not agree with at all, but understand what are the facts before I put my thoughts and my feelings into it. So let me ask you this on this topic. You are about to graduate from college. You went to school, in high school, you lived in Oakland, things like that. As somebody who's going to be the voice of education and education reform moving forward and what needs to happen, what what did you need more of or less of when you were in high school? Like, what is the major reform or thing that you feel like needs to happen where you feel like you could have even been more prepared than what you are now?
Wow. This is very full circle for me because even you bringing up research, that's actually another just big component of what I want to be a part of my career. And I actually just did finish the study actually, where I was kind of asking this exact same question to some of the youth and families I was working with about where they see the gaps in like education? Is it at home? Is it in the community? Is it at schools? Things like that. And so you asking me what I could have benefited from growing up. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I think it comes down to just knowing what your options were. I think college it's either pushed super heavy or it's not talked about at all. And I think for me, I kind of got both ends of that. And so, you think college is the only option. I'm obviously grateful I chose this route, but it's not the only option for everyone. And so when folks don't align with that, they kind of, don't pick anything at all. And so I wish, and even within picking college, I wish I would have known more ahead of time about the process of like selecting a major, picking classes, just the day-to-day life of a college student, and just what that looks like moving forward, securing internships, being involved, things like that. I think it just comes down to exposure. And I think a lot of Black public schools don't offer exposure, holistic, well-rounded exposure in that way.
Oh, you want to hear a funny story? What you say?
I said, did I answer the question?
No. It's your question. You answered it. I would say I'll give you a funny story because I was the first in my family to go to college. But my parents were what they were. Like my parents were in and out of jail when I was younger until they got themselves cleaned up. They're doing great now. But I was the first in my family to go to college. Let me tell you why that's significant. One, I did not apply to as many of the schools that I probably could have got into. I kind of went where I knew I could go. One that it just costs like $50 to $60 a pop to apply, but just knowing the resources so you can, do these applications without going broke. That's one. But two, when I got into college, I went to Cal State Hayward, which is now East Bay. I had a few basketball scholarships, but they were only partial. And I had a bad knee. I knew I wasn't going to the league. So I wanted to go for my grades. I didn't want to have to worry about losing scholarship. So my parents, they don't know nothing about college. So you picking your classes where I get in, I do the orientation. So me and my parents are picking classes. And because none of us ever been to college before, we set up my college schedule like I was in high school. So I went to school Monday through Friday.
Oh, wow.
From 7:30 a.m. to 3 something p.m. And the program I was in, they were trying to make sure low income kids, Black and brown kids, whoever, were able to matriculate and finish. So they put us in these cohorts. But the thing about that was they believe that if you're in this cohort, y'all will stick together more. Y'all see each other through this stuff. Y'all are together, so like 3 or 4 core classes every semester. We did that for a year. And then CSU at that time where I went was on a quarter system. So three quarters. I was locked into this schedule for a year. I didn't know I could go to school Tuesdays and Thursdays or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or take some evening classes or do whatever. Crazy. So, but who knew? Like if nobody's there helping you and giving you that information. So if you're somebody, and I built a company where I wrote a book for first gen Black kids that are going to college to be like, hey, you actually can do these things, but if you don't know, how you gonna find out? Exactly. But yeah, I think that's dope. Have you thought about, you got to start somewhere. I don't know how you feel about entrepreneurship or things like that in the future. I do think it's key to go get some experience and go someplace and be pissed off. Go someplace and kind of see what it kind of means to have to take orders and things like that, because everything's not going to go your way. But have you thought about or flirted with the idea around entrepreneurship or, your own organization at some point?
I love the idea. I would love for it to happen. I think obviously being so early in my career, I don't know what that'll look like for me yet, but obviously have definitely thought about it. I think a lot of my career is going to be very nuanced. I think once I'm kind of in my career, I would have identified some like key prominent barriers like that youth are facing when it comes to getting into college and whatnot. And I would kind of tailor my career around whatever those specific areas are. And then from there, it's probably going to be a bigger need within a bigger community, larger districts and whatnot, and just seeing how, I could make a bigger impact in that way. So that could be something that kind of turns into its own spinoff, turns into its own business or organization, nonprofit or whatnot. But definitely flirted with the idea, definitely played around with it, but nothing too concrete yet.
No, I think that's dope, man. I would just say this. I think one of the things I try to do is I try to open up around what does it look like running this stuff, or the type of decisions we need to make, or how much does this cost, or just things that I think wealthy people get exposed to early. They get exposed to money management early. They get exposed to running companies early. They get exposed to traveling out the country earlier and things like that. And a lot of things, I was like an infant doing it. Like I was like a baby trying to learn how to walk and being wobbly just because nobody around me had that experience, right? So I wanted EC to help people with that. So let me ask you one more thing, and then I'll open it up to you to ask me whatever. The people that may run education or have power in it, or maybe it's a foundation, maybe it's a superintendent, maybe it's the leader of a private school or charter school or whatever. What message, what's something that you want to see like focused on as far as like community or education stuff is concerned? What's something that if it was started to happen, it would excite you and you'd actually be willing to help with that?
I don't think students are getting enough holistic care. Not too sure what exactly schools can do about the things that's happening in a student's life outside of the classroom, right? Because schools is schools. You just think of the set building, you go there, you get your education. But there's so much happening in a student's life outside of the classroom that are affecting the classroom for them. And so I'm just wondering what it would look like if schools or districts found some kind of way to intervene with things that's happening in the community, or at least be a bridge between other resources in the community for students and families. And I think that is a very great place to start. Like I said, that holistic, whole child approach when it comes to education. So I would love to see that. I would love to pilot that myself, things like that.
That's what's up, man. Well, the floor is yours. And you know, I love that you've done research. I want to see you keep writing. I want to see at some point, I would love to see you and other young people taking over using this platform and having conversations about some of these topics and things that you all are researching. But I'm very proud of you. But now the floor is yours. Like you know, I think intergenerational conversations are really important. So have at it.
Very basic question. You've kind of been doing it already. You've already been dropping little gems, but just wondering if you could go back and when you were getting started with this whole thing, what would be like one major piece of advice you would give yourself or would give someone else in your shoes, kind of starting, not just energy converters, but just kind of starting in this education world and business in general?
Yeah, I would say surround yourself with different type of mentors. And mentorship looks a lot of different ways. It's not always about you just asking somebody and if they say yes or no. But there's enough. If you want to know how to get in shape, go find somebody who's super in shape. If you want to learn how to be a good wife or husband, then why don't you try to talk to somebody who's been, not somebody who's not in a relationship or somebody that's not, you know, or brand new in their marriage, but like find somebody who's been in it for 50 years. Like I think I would have leaned more on wisdom and trying to collect people that could give me the wisdom that I need, right? A smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from the mistakes of others. And I made so many mistakes. I think the other thing I would tell myself too is make those mistakes quickly and move forward. I mean, there's big mistakes I've made in my life that I'm just like not proud of. They'll be there with me forever. But I think that's what builds your character. That's where humility comes from. I would hate to see myself if I never made a major mistake, because I think this is one thing I see young people on the internet do a lot. Like they're really young, so they're really judgmental about a lot of things. In some ways, that's good in the sense of like there's an idealism around your generation and younger where you have more information, you got access to a lot of things, and like, hey, this should be like this, or we should fix these things. The part where I want to fix and I would add and say you need some elders or some other people around you is that because everybody's trying to be perfect, we're not training people for when they make a mistake, how to actually deal with it. Because now your generation is also one of the generations that has the most self-harm that we've probably ever seen. And that wasn't something that we saw a lot when I was like a kid that I'm seeing more now, like depression and things like that. So I think those things, just really making sure I surrounded myself with the right type of people so that could coach me up, that could hold me accountable, that could help me, not in a way to like, I don't like this finger wagging, we cancel everybody type of stuff. I don't like that. I think because there has to be room for people to make mistakes so they can grow. And that way, when you do reach failure, because you will fail more than you will succeed. That's another thing I would tell you. I fail at something every single day. You know, but I can fail over and over. Sometimes you just need to succeed once. You can hear 1,000 no's. You just sometimes need to hear one yes. And that would be, you know, I would also tell my younger self, you're going to be all right. Like if you stay, nothing will ever replace working hard. Like I understand that there's a lot of entitlement and I think some things should be fixed and there should be some places where there can be a little bit of entitlement. But I look at the world like the world owes me nothing. It owes me nothing. I don't deserve anything. whatever I go out and take and what I go get, that's always served me. Like you might see Dr. Cole, or you might see me running this company. I'm not smarter than anybody, and I don't think I have better business savvy. I think that I just continue to go. Every time I fell down, I just got up and kept moving forward. There are some papers I can show you from grad school where in my dissertation, my chair, like there's pages where it's just red marker.
Red.
And he also wrote something like, never write that shit again. Like, and so, but if somebody that came up today might see that and like quit or be like, man, this person doesn't care about my mental health. It's like, no, there's a thing around rigor. There's a thing around being good. And if you're under me, I'm not going to just push you forward just for the simple fact of doing it. I want you to grow and be a master at something. So I know that was a long answer, but hopefully.
No, that was good. That was like multiple gems in once. So that answered a lot already.
That's what's up. Well,
yeah, that was good.
I definitely see you as one of the leaders in our group. If you got anything else, you got, go ahead. You don't have to, but I want to give you time.
No, I think you've definitely answered my curiosities on this topic and for today. So we'll be here again. So
we will be here again. And what I'm looking forward to, we'll do these like individual with young people. I'll lead some, Victor will lead some, we'll lead some together. And then we're going to get to places where it's Erin and two other young people around a topic that they all did some stuff on, and they're having conversations, and and there'll be some stuff that you research and we'll be talking, and I will purposely push you on them. I will purposely be the opposition and say, hey, and part of that is to train so you don't have an emotional reaction to it, but like you're responding with facts and you don't get frazzled because somebody doesn't agree with you. I think that the world needs to be able to debate again and have critical conversations. Everybody can't be the same. No two people will agree on everything, and that's okay. I don't think we should keep splitting the world up into good and evil because I don't believe in it that way. I don't know if there's heroes and villains. I think there's just people. And sometimes people do heroic shit and sometimes they do villainous things, but they're still, I never want to judge somebody by their worst moment. So that's just me. Well, that's Erin. I'm Charles. This is the Agentic Show powered by Energy Converters, and tune in for more. You'll get more of these conversations, these one-offs. Please like and share. And if you got this clip virally, please share it, comment on it, because we want to have more of these conversations. And if you're interested, reach on out and say you might be interested in having some conversations with me or some of our young people. With that being said, for Erin, I'm Charles, and we will see you all next time. Peace.